Good morning, sir, and welcome to this series of Enterprise Risk, Making It Real. Thank you for your time. Let me sort of start with a very sort of obvious question. All of us talking about COVID. Are you seeing any change in appreciation for risk management post-COVID? And specifically, are you seeing anything differently in the education sector?
I think, at this point of time, the primary concern of education institution has been to ensure that their losses on account of enrollment are minimized. Perhaps it is for the first time that education institutions have faced a situation like that. There's not much of a conversation still in the education sector on risks, but I think there are enough of sounds in the boards, in some very distinguished boards of institutions, where this kind of a conversation is there. Particularly when they realize that they have won a huge debt to service because of the kind of an infrastructure investment that has happened in the last one decade. This is particularly true for the private sector. In the case of the government sector, well, obviously, government takes care of whatever your deficits are, but that kind of a luxury doesn't happen in the case of an education institution. And the only hope is that this kind of a disruption and this pain that is there caused by COVID doesn't really get extended to another year or two, in which case, I think many institutions will have to close their doors permanently. Right now, many are trying to overcome this situation through multiple ways. But yes, there is a kind of a talk and a conversation on risks, but these are primarily the financial risk that people are really talking about it from that point of view.
So, you have the vantage point of not just having an academia view, but meet enough corporates, have a pretty good insight into how large corporations have handled risk management. So do you believe that, or why would you say risk management hasn't got embraced by large corporations as much as I guess some of us would have liked it to happen?
I won't really jump to this kind of a conclusion at this point of time. That large corporations haven't really embraced risk management. Maybe the risk management practices that we would expect them to be adopting isn't really as, let's say, as wide or as deep as one would possibly anticipate when you really start looking at it from the point of view of the corporate governance itself, or from the governance point of view. And again, in a large corporation, what I have really seen is that it is by and large a concern more about the financial risk which is involved in either a new product development or in terms of, let's say, new market access or those kinds of an aspect that are there. But when it comes down to the risk management, the way we understand it to be, and the way where we are wanting to drive in this committee of ours, I don't think there is an appreciation to that extent. That awareness level also is not there to that an extent. There would be a discussion in the finance committee from time to time on the risks that are there, particularly when, let us say, there is a new investment that is going to be made, or a new project that is getting off to a start, or in terms of any new technology which the company is wanting to adopt. But in terms of looking at it from the point of view of the range or the depth of the risk and understanding the risk management in the context in which we are really talking about it, as a culture, as a strategy, as a process, I don't think that's kind of an appreciation. And that is only because of the fact that Indian market has been very large. And fortunately, it has absorbed all inefficiencies of the industry so far. And therefore, even if I fail in one place, I have enough of bandwidth available to me to make money somewhere else. So it just doesn't get that way. And so therefore, I would imagine that one would have to do a lot of work, even with the large corporations, in terms of making it a part of their strategy, policies, structure, systems, and their processes itself. The leader himself has to be wedded to this whole aspect of risk management. My biggest problem always is that we may think in terms of a change in an organization, but unless the leader is committed, unless the leader has that kind of a perspective, I'm afraid no change can ever come about. Especially if the leader doesn't have a wider perspective and is not able to look beyond from today to something which I really don't know tomorrow is going to be happening. Until that is there, that is going from a known to an unknown, unless and until that is clear, or that is where the leader gets into, exploring, he or she would never be able to appreciate what we are really talking about.
That's an interesting perspective, sir. So, India is obviously seeing more and more entrepreneurs come up. Like in any other market, some have succeeded, some haven't. Hopefully, the number of entrepreneurs keep increasing over a period of time. Do you see entrepreneurs being able to leverage better risk management to be more successful?
Yes, I think to a large extent, the new generation entrepreneurs are keyed into the risk management. Because perhaps they are playing with the risk. They're playing a game which is all nothing but the risk that they are taking. Right? Particularly, I am seeing this in the context of EdTech as an example.
Yeah.
There's a issue would look at it, and I'm sure you would agree that in the last 3 years, there has been a mushrooming growth in the EdTech industry. Almost everybody is there. Almost every young person has a solution for a problem that I may have. So some of these are really trying to help me to improve my efficiency overall in the education sector. And in others, they're trying to possibly only improve one part of my institution itself. And I'm particularly taking an example from EdTech because that's one area that we have seen the maximum growth during the COVID period. So the question that is coming up, is it a bubble that we are seeing in the EdTech industry? The same thing comes about in the context of a whole lot of e-commerce companies and many of the other digital services companies that we are seeing. There's a plenty of them. There's a plethora of them that is now today coming up. Obviously, there are those kinds of market niches. There are some market gaps which they are all trying to fill in, either from a service angle or from a point of view of the product angle or from a price angle. But the risks that they have of succeeding when, let us say, the market matures and the intensity of competition further increases remains to be seen. So my feeling is that these young boys and girls who are there today, and the new startups which are there, they are really playing with the risks almost day in and day out. And so therefore their awareness level of risk is much more than what it exists in the context of the larger corporation.
Just building on that, sir, are you starting to see leadership in top education institutions have any more focus or appreciation for need to have risk management education as part of more curriculums? Obviously, GRMI is separate, but I'm saying in the more larger, known, reputed institutions. Are you seeing any of that conversation now come up?
In the context of an appreciation to risk management, as we all know, the risk management as a subject itself is a part of the management program in most institutions. So practically almost all top institutions in India and perhaps worldwide have had courses in risk management. And they have been growing over the last 5 to 6 years, even before COVID really came in. And there are faculty members who have been researching this whole area of risks, particularly after, and I'm saying this particularly after the financial meltdown that happened in 2008.
Absolutely.
I see a greater degree of an interest for the faculty to research this entire area. I'm aware, I've had faculty some very senior faculty at NMIMS who were deeply involved in this, and they were actually playing with a whole lot of our New York Stock Exchange data itself, NYSE data. But once again, all this kind of a part that has been talked about is more from a financial point of view, financial risk point of view. When one was talking about the international business, as an example, as one of the verticals, one kind of a topic that was there was certainly risk management, but that is where it was more from a country risk point of view, and therefore, the regulatory risk and let's say the customer risk, etc., plus the financial risk, all was being discussed in that kind of a vertical. But in the MBA general management, I think in the finance area, this kind of an elective has already emerged there. But having said that, I come to another part. And that is something which I have been sort of advocating ever since last 1.5 years or so. That time has come when we have to think in terms of shorter duration programs, particularly micro masters programs, at micro masters or at micro bachelor level kind of programs. And since risk is growing in a big way, because once the environment gets complex, risk of operations certainly go up. And therefore, from that kind of a point of view, I believe industry needs many more managers who understand risks and who will be able to manage the risks for the top management, for the board itself, and for that matter, let's say, the owners, if it is an ownership company, the family business itself. So while the business schools may have the issue with regard to the number of subjects that they can bring in the area of risk management, a shorter duration diploma program and certificate courses in risk management are likely to see a greater demand. And I further go over to it, and let me further build on it. One of the kind of requirement and one of the kind of needs that is today emerging from the industry is that of executives who have the skills to be able to manage uncertainty. And risk management is one which helps in terms of managing the uncertainty. No strategy, no understanding of strategy can work if you are not able to understand what that risk is. Having said that, therefore, what I would think that one of the kind of upskilling or reskilling which is going to be happening, even in the context of MBA finance students, even from the top management schools like IIMs or XLRI or NMIMS or MDI or any of them, is that they will need to acquire an understanding of risk management and qualifications in this area. It is much the same way as digital marketing. Certification is required today. Understanding of digital, how the market works, how the customer is behaving in a digital space is an extremely important part if one has to succeed in today's kind of area. I mean, the era of physical product sales is gradually getting replaced by the digital kind of delivery. And we have seen this during the COVID period. I mean, if you and I were able to really meet our demand for essentials, I think thanks to the e-delivery firms and the e-commerce firms that were there, whether you were talking about the food or it was talking about your staples or it was your items that you would be needing in your kitchen, anything, or for that matter, anything that you would be needing in your clothing. I think Amazon, Flipkarts, and this Swiggies and Zomatos. So the digital marketing, understanding of digital markets is as important. Marketing in 24/7 era is as important now today as, let's say, an understanding of marketing as a subject per se. So positioning the risk management program, I would feel, and we need to, think in terms of how do we build the capabilities in the industry. And I think one big area is that of education and training in the area of risk management, whether this is for the MBA's finance or it is straight out of graduation that we are talking about it, or it could even be those who are the faculty members and who may want to really get an appropriate qualification in risk management. Well, I believe that the time to come is really an area where this kind of a scope will really grow. And once we come up with the risk code, let me tell you, and once this gets accepted at the industry level, the demand will simply zoom. It'll just boom kind of a stuff.
I absolutely love the perspective you brought in, which is, I think most people think that they already do risk management, but the whole way you articulated it, that corporations are looking for their leaders to be able to deal with uncertainty. I think that has landed very well with people, that yes, we don't have too many leaders who actually can deal with uncertainty. So maybe the way to position it is, we will equip your managers to deal with uncertainty better. And the underlying science behind it is risk management, while uncertainty is more the emotion that connects better. So I think it's a fantastic concept. So just to sort of wind this up, sir, you did refer to the code, and obviously you've been instrumental in this getting conceptualized and sort of FICCI getting on board with this. How would you define the code as being a success? As in, what, if it happened, would make you feel happy saying, yes, we wrote up this code, there's enough literature across the world, but what we wrote up resulted in something meaningful? How would you define that?
I looked at it much the same way as the governance code. Right, starting with Cadbury report. And I go back in time, because having been a student of management, and having taught management, and me in terms of my background, having taught in the IIMs and etc., one has to be keeping abreast of what is happening in the industry. So the issues of governance were there very significantly, and there were governance failures that was happening, but nobody was really talking about it. Till the time with the Cadbury report in UK came up and talked about the governance and the governance code and talked about the good governance practices and stuff like that. And then accordingly, the whole lot of developments in India that really happened. And then SEBI picking it up and then making it mandatory, particularly from the point of view of ensuring that there is a better regulated market and there is a better kind of a transparency in the corporate functioning itself. To my mind, That was, if that was one landmark in the industry, in the evolution of modern industry and modern corporates, I believe with complexities increasing, this kind of a code will be another landmark, because it is going to be helping companies to focus on areas that really would lead towards better risk management practices in their own organization. It's not prescriptive that we are talking about it. We are not talking about a prescriptive kind of a behavior. I don't think this is any kind of a punitive aspect so far. And it's the same way. Neither we talk about it from the point of view of the governance part of it also. But the punitive aspect that comes up in the governance is that when the stakeholders don't have a confidence in your company, that's where everything comes into boils down to. So much the same way, I feel that when it comes to risk management, if you are not able to manage uncertainty, then in that case, I think stakeholder confidence in you will not be there. And I think as long as I get an early signals, I get an early bell. As a leader, I get an early bell that, look, this operation is going to lead towards a major risk in terms of operations or financial risks, or customer confidence may get shaken in my brand. If early bells are not there for me, as a leader and as a board, I will never be able to do the course correction. What we are trying to do, and what I think the risk management coach should do, is to build this kind of a system in the organization, in the companies. And that's why I call it as a landmark. And a step forward for GRMI, because that gives GRMI that much of a teeth to talk about it in the market.
So I'm going to take the liberty of asking you a slightly provocative question, because you brought up used the word punitive. Few regulations, like even take SOX or take FCPA, FCPA existed for the longest time till the Department of Justice really came down hard and starting putting those $500 million, $1 billion penalties. Everyone woke up. SOX existed, but once the PCAOB started auditing the big fours itself, it suddenly became a lot more intense. Do you think in India, while there has been the governance code, Clause 49 still remains a register for companies? Do you think there is need for the regulator to get some more muscle, some more teeth for some of this to get changed? Or is there a way to achieve this without punitive measures?
I think that bringing in regulator right from the beginning will really prevent things happening. I feel that it has to be a voluntary adoption. And I say this particularly from the point of view of something else, a parallel, which is there. I come from marketing area, so I would draw from the point of view of the advertising industry.
Yeah.
There's a code of ethics that the Indian Society of Advertisers and the Advertising Agencies Association of India have come up with. And almost every advertiser and media subscribe to it. They don't have any teeth. If I refuse to accept their directive, there's no way that the AAAI would come hard on me. But what may happen, and this is what I have said, what may happen, that some of the top advertising agencies whom I may want to work with for creating my brand or for developing my brand, they may not necessarily accept my account. And even if they accept my account, they may ask me not to really, or to commit to an ethical code, which they may sort of put it across even for me. And I'm aware of it because something of this kind happened in the past in the institution, and we had to really argue it out at the AAAI and make them satisfied or satisfy them with the data on the basis of which we were claiming some kind of accomplishment. So I would say that first of all, let's start creating that kind of the more it is voluntary, because they see it as beneficial to them. They see it as helping them. They see it as an insurance, I would say, against catastrophe that may happen.
Yeah.
Or anything uncertain that may be happening, or an unknown event may occur, or before any tsunami really hits them. I think as long as they are able to see that from that kind of point of view, we will have a better traction than just maybe going through the regulator. But certainly, at some point of time, the regulator will come in.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say is that it's got to get a natural traction and adoption because companies see value in it. And then over a period of time, a regulator kind of can possibly take it a step further, make it more pervasively accepted. So thank you so much, Professor.
Just one word again. And I think, Subhashis, I think this is where FICCI plays a very significant role in this process. The diffusion of the code, the diffusion of the entire thinking that we have in the industry through our distinguished chairperson, Mr. Damodar, and the team and the task force members would play a very significant role, because the kind of credibility that each one of the members carry and the chairman carries, when they start speaking to FICCI members, and they are almost who's who of Indian industry sitting over there, I feel that there will be a greater degree of adoption, and therefore the voluntary adoption would really gear up. And our task, and therefore the FICCI will play a very significant role in this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Professor, for making this come together, for your time, and for sharing your views. And we'll continue to talk to you over a period of time. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you very much, Subhashis. Thank you.